Good evening, and welcome to episode 17 of the Unhinged Dads podcast. I am Brian De Almeida. With me is my ever present and faithful co host, Dave Pasco. Dave, how are you? It's been 2 weeks, thanks to yet
God
another
bless.
end of year concert.
We're doing pretty well. We are trying to make things happen in good ways, and we're probably within like a week and a half of moving back in to the house. We
That's
took
fantastic.
we took the thing that you bathe in and drink water. That's the word I'm looking for. We took
Well,
water samples today. After shocking the well and running a certain amount of bleach through the softener system, and we should get the results of whether it's safe to use and slash drink in things other than toilets tomorrow. And
fantastic.
that's honestly the big one. We actually have a crew working there right now. Actually, not right now. It's been hours since they left, which is good because
I should hope.
it's teenagers. Teenagers. Well, I'm trusting them to do things like adults do, since they have a couple of adults as leaders, and a bunch of teenagers, and adults who have lead teenagers in things like church groups and youth groups and various youthly organizations are aware that you can only push them so far before you have to feed them again.
Yeah, and feeding teenagers is expensive,
It's
as
it's
I well
funny you
know.
say that. I've got a new 12-year old. That's one of the things that happened. And the
That's
hormone
right.
monster is definitely rearing its head at times.
I think you can say head without it being mistaken.
Ugly head? Can I say rearing its ugly head? Like that's actually a
I
phrase. So
think
I'll say
so.
rear. Let's go back. Have the editor go back and fill that in. Right.
Yep. Which I'm just looking. I managed to hack together a short clip out of our 5 minutes on the hormone monsters,
I saw
and
that.
that
I
went
saw
live
that.
on YouTube today.
Yeah.
It has
My
26 views.
mm, my
My
wife thought
joke
it was
about
hilarious.
well, yeah, my joke about the sound of old modems was the sound of robots having sex, and that was what gave us dubstep. Went live 2 days ago, and has 2 views on YouTube.
Man, YouTube's just like boring.
Okay. The one I did on Achilles' Choice
Yes.
has 14 views. It is almost a week old. However, on the 24th, I did the Spartans Die in Glory that had the opener with the Spartans and my head picture in picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is our best performing piece of content with over 1,400 views.
Huh.
And the consensus between Grok and I is that our humor may be a little too niche for the general population, and when we try to be like serious and deep, that we're actually too deep for the general population, so it doesn't resonate.
That actually checks out.
However, the deeper ones have the highest
Hmm.
engagement of people who watch them. So I'm trying to go for a mix of stuff that is accessible to the general population and stuff that is deeper for like hardcore listeners, if we have any of
Yeah.
those.
Well, that's one of those adages in the publishing world where all you really need is 1,000 true fans, power readers who will buy literally anything you write, at which point you
Mm-hmm.
could make a decent living off of them, provided your output can keep
Sustain them.
them interested. Yeah.
Yes. Because the power readers tend to be neurodivergent, and neurodivergent people have a strong sense of out of, um, shit, just lost my train of thought, but out of sight, out of mind. So if you're not regularly reading
Mhm.
from somebody, you forget they exist and then circle back to their books 4 years later and then read 20.
This is actually one of the things I really enjoy about Royal Road. As much as I get very tired of the what feels like a short form content, which is, 2 or 3 thousand words a day per chapter kind of thing, where it's oftentimes 3 or 4 days a week posting, but
Hmm.
that's still a good chunk of content. Like I can lose hours with the number of genuinely decent reads that I've found on there per day.
The everlasting struggle.
Yeah. So yeah, no,
There's
we're doing
practically
pretty
an
well. Mm,
good. And so there's practically an infinite number of books in the world, and only so many hours that you can actually spend reading.
it's rude. On the other hand,
Yeah.
I can call it research
When's the last
because
time that you actually produced any fiction or published, let's say?
that's a shut up and mind your own business kind of question.
That sounds
And
like accountability talk between friends.
yeah, the issue there primarily is that major stressors tend to like genuinely major stressors tend to severely reduce one's creative output,
Oh,
and
hell yes.
I've described to you the last several years of our lives. I have actually written something. I swear within the last 18 months, maybe, probably.
Yeah, somewhere
Might be
between
one.
the baby being born and the house being flooded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm mostly just being an asshole because I love you. But
No, and I appreciate that. And it's one of those you need people to kick your ass, and you also need them to understand that you may just have gotten pulled into a dark alleyway by life and roughed up, maybe shivved a little bit, and possibly um, what's the Bloodhound Gang song that we're probably not going to touch on, but like
the
that.
bad touch,
Yeah, that one. Yes, that's the one. You
because
never know.
we're nothing but mammals.
Well, it feels like it some days.
My kids can get so embarrassed at timing that song with the right volume because of course I have good subwoofer installations in my cars.
Oh yeah,
Go roll up to pick up at high school playing that, and they just roll their eyes and look like they want to die for a second. Like, why are you
yeah,
doing this in front of my peers? You are so annoying.
yeah. See, but
But that's
that's
one of
that's the
that's
kind of thing you live for.
that's one of the great joys of raising teenagers is that your ability to embarrass them requires so little effort, and the
Hmm.
return on investment is massive.
One of the things we've actually been doing is working on immunizing our children to that level of embarrassment, because it's going to make their lives better as they move through adolescence and puberty and the joys of hormonal cascades and biological insanity. But it's also going to force us to up our game. You
Continuous
know,
improvement.
growth growth is important.
Yep. So it's actually a good thing that I had a high school music concert last Thursday. That was the day I came down with some hell virus that my youngest brought for me from school, and I spent most of Thursday flat on my back. I went to the concert anyways because it was my daughter's last high school concert. She's not playing in the orchestra for her senior year.
Okay.
So I went anyways. I felt awful. I went anyways. They did a
Yep.
fantastic job. And then I basically stayed in bed Friday, Saturday, and most of Sunday. Sunday I went and did grocery shopping, and that wiped me out.
Yeah, that kind of thing really sucks. Like it sucks the kind of things that we don't talk about because family might be listening.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but yeah, and with being immune suppressed, catching a cold honestly does come out kind of like the proverbial man cold. It will knock me completely on my ass.
Dude.
My kids went Saturday. I was laying on the couch and watching TV, and one of my kids walks in and goes, "Are you watching TV?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh my God, you're really sick." Because I never watch TV. I
Yeah,
just there is so little that interests me, and I just can't sit still for that long generally. So my kids know if I feel too shitty to even be able to sit in the chair and play video games or read,
yeah,
they're like, "Oh my God, are you dying?"
right.
So I did
And
not
then
have
you
much of
say,
a
"Shut up,"
voice,
slowly.
and I was all congested. It would not have been great, and I would have hated that because this is one of my favorite topics, which just goes to show you how fucking weird we are. But
Yeah, yeah.
but before we go to our scheduled topic, we have our questions three. So Dave,
Yes,
what
sir.
have you done for self improvement in the last 2 weeks?
For self improvement, um, after some illness, and then after my wife took some leave, and we focused on housework, which is to say, rebuilding the inside of our house in useful ways. Um, I am getting back into the swing of making sure I get my workouts in on a regular basis, and also not beating myself up for missing a day here and there because, oh, I don't know, I've been running around literally all day doing things to make sure the house gets rebuilt and we can move in a reasonable way. And we could stop paying double mortgage, basically.
That's right, because the Navy doesn't give you your housing for free while you're in your temporary housing,
We get BAH, the basic allowance for housing,
which
which
you have when you're living in your house.
has, yep, and that pays for the mortgage, but not for utilities. And right now we're paying rent um, in a what is effectively a uh, furnished apartment on base on a hotel like arrangement. So
Yep,
we're paying a lot, and fortunately, we have a goodly amount to do that with because we have been fortunate in support through our flood insurance claim and our support networks, as well as, frankly, the government.
the government should be taking care of our active duty service people. That
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that really should be one of those things you've signed your name on the dotted line, up to and including my life, my health, and my sanity.
Yes.
Um, we you we should be ensuring that our service people's needs are met.
And we're actually doing we the people we the federal government are actually doing a better job of that now than in many places throughout history.
Yeah,
If you want to find a time for when that wasn't dealt with well, check out the bonus army sometime. Yeah,
I have rants about that.
dude, it is so messy. That one is
Uh huh.
so messy because
Yep.
they shouldn't have ought have been doing that. But at the same time, what the heck were they going to do?
Yeah. I have
Um,
I, I
and
have many feelings, and they are mixed.
and the way it was dealt with was also not awesome.
Yes. Bonus Army received a mention in one of Larry Correa's hard magic books,
Yes,
and
the
I thought it
the
was characterized really well.
Grim Noir Chronicles. I thought he did really well at showing the humanity of everybody involved and how not great a situation it actually was. Yeah,
Yeah, there are some things Larry is so good at bringing out the nuance while still managing to slap you with a sledgehammer with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Some there are times when he preaches, but I don't mind it because it's good.
generally, I'm sitting here going, I could not put the amount of effort that you do into arguing with people on the internet, man, but you are fantastic at
Oh yeah.
it.
Well, and it's funny.
Generally,
Anyway,
yeah.
yeah, I've been making sure that I'm getting my workouts in, and probably the most important part is actually saying, I've been busy today, and it's okay that I missed a day. I don't have to train every day.
Fair.
Yeah.
For me, I've been working on internalizing one of the themes that came out of our last episode.
Mm.
Not actually on enforcing boundaries, but internalizing this thought that our teenagers, their brains are still developing. The limbic system is very much in charge,
Oh
and
yeah.
the parts of the brain that control rationality are very underdeveloped, even as they're coming up on the end of high school.
Oh yeah.
And so, a certain amount of selfishness, of lack of attention to how their actions and words impact other people,
Hmm.
and emotional reactivity are in fact developmentally appropriate.
Yes.
Annoying as they may be, as frustrating as they may be in the moment, that is appropriate for valid physiological and biochemical reasons. And just like a toddler throwing a tantrum, rarely, if ever, is there any malice behind it,
Right. It
which has
it,
been one
it
of the things
comes
that
it
doing this. Sorry, go ahead.
man with it. We have I mentioned my oldest is just now 12, like a week ago, and so there is, and it sounds like malice. It sounds, from an adult standpoint, it is the kind of thing you put thought and effort behind to make things hurtful and unpleasant for somebody else. But
Yep.
really, it's probably not.
Oh yeah. I mean, there. I'll tell you, there is nobody better at being mean and saying the things that will hurt you than your teenage daughter.
Yes, my sister was so unpleasant from 13 to about 15 and a half. Mm.
Yeah.
My poor
And
mother could do nothing right.
the
Hmm.
other thing I'm learning through this and through doing therapy is how abnormal my childhood and adolescence were.
Yeah, yeah. Half of our mutual friend circle it's always the tell the funny story and then go, oh, everybody's horrified. Maybe that wasn't funny in retrospect.
Yeah, you're saying well, I'm relating a funny anecdote from growing up. People are going, "Hell, my therapist is going. You know that's not normal, right?" And I'm like, "It's
That's
not."
that's textbook abusive. You're aware of that, right?
Uh huh.
Oh, I thought, huh,
And
okay.
I'm like, "Oh, so my expectations of my kids are out of line with reality." He's like, "Yeah, you're really expecting more out of them than you should." And so it's
Right.
learning and tempering my expectations and understanding that it is not normal for a 16 or 17-year-old to be able to just run a household with four younger siblings in it for a week with no parents around.
Yeah, it's highly unusual, and
I thought that was
im-
normal.
both impressive and one of those things where you kind of go, huh, that feels off.
Yeah, just a little bit. So,
Yeah.
what is something that we have done well over the last 2 weeks?
Oh, what have I done well? I have really started leveraging my children's likely ADD, or at least the tendencies thereof, towards their education, where it's, I want a thing to happen, And so I am going to I want them to do a synthesis style writing assignment basically every day. And so I want them, in order to do it on something they actually enjoy, something that interests them. And I
You
don't
don't
have
say.
any, I know, right? You know, it,
It's like the exact opposite of public school.
I have feelings about
Just
that.
pushed a button there.
Yeah. So I've been getting better results based on that. Although I have my eldest, my now 12-year old, had this great moment where he was like, "Ooh, I can write it in a book and quill in Minecraft. That would be awesome." And I said, "I really don't want you to do that. I want you to do it hard copy on a piece of paper with your pen in front of you in physical space." And what did he do? He did it on a quill and pen item in Minecraft, which you can write in and you can save things, and it's awesome. But then somebody attacks you and you die, and your items
Manuscript is
are,
lost.
well, or they get picked up by somebody who is not particularly, not necessarily hostile, but in a PvP situation, a player versus player situation, they're not
Yeah.
likely to just listen to you and give back the thing that your school assignment is written down. And so, it, treating the whole process as a work in progress, it was like, okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to do your best to remember that and write it down hard copy, and then for the rest of these, you can absolutely write them in Minecraft if you want, but you're going to do it in a not online situation, a local something where you have local backups. And we had a great conversation about local backups and using the cloud and potential issues related to, oh, I don't know, there's a natural disaster and you've lost everything that's not local,
Yep.
or you've lost everything that's local but you can't get to your cloud
Yeah.
storage.
Or the fact that the cloud is literally just a fancy way of saying somebody else's computer.
Yes, that you're ostensibly not paying for, but you probably are.
Oh, they're just it. Well, if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. They're
Or the
taking your data
product.
and they're selling it.
That's
It's one of the things
that's
everybody needs to understand about how the internet works.
that may well be a subject for an entire episode at some point, related to shepherding children through things like social media and online presence. And when I was your age, kid, nobody had a camera on their phone.
Yeah, we've already talked about how grateful we are to have not had the opportunity to video ourselves throughout our entire adolescence and document it for the world to see.
And I was a pretty boring kid in most ways. I did not get up to crazy shenanigans like some of my peers did.
Hmm. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
You know something I did well. You know, we are. Let's see. Tomorrow's the last day of school. Saturday morning, we are leaving on our summer vacation, headed for the
Yes.
Oregon coast. So I've been going through the cars, doing all my spring maintenance, doing all my pre-trip maintenance. Yesterday, I was going through my truck and just doing a quick cleanup of it because every surface on it gets coated in sawdust that billows off of me when I'm working in the shop. And so I'm just going through and dusting, and I found the two spots on my seats where one of my children hides his boogers that he picks out of his nose.
Like down near a seam.
Uh huh.
Hmm.
And you know what? I did not lose my entire shit.
That's that's impressive because that's nasty. Like
That's
that's
we've
mm,
I have addressed this with this child before. Part of the issue is he's the most neurodivergent of my kids, and
More
he
than once?
fidgets incessantly,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads to picking his nose. It leads to chewing his nails down to the point that his fingers bleed,
Yup.
all that kind of stuff. And I have to understand that as fucking disgusting as this is, and as infuriating as it is, this is not entirely a willful action on his part because he does a lot of
Right.
things that he is not conscious of actually doing until you point it out to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I cleaned it up, and we later chatted with him in a calm manner, like, hey, man, really need you to pay attention to what you're doing, and please don't do this. It is so gross. I really hate having to clean it up.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, honestly, when I find that, it makes me, I get so angry. And I said, I don't want to feel that way.
Yeah.
So please try and help me out here to be aware. I will try and make sure that there are that I've got some tissues, so
Mm-hmm.
that if you need to clean out your nose, you can without, making a mess. But my first inclination was was to hit the release button on the rage monster, but that's not going to help the situation.
No, it really isn't. You might feel vindication for like half a second or so.
Right until the kid starts crying, and
Right.
then I feel like an asshole, and I should, because I was being an asshole,
Yeah. And this
and
way
not in one of the justifiable ways.
you're actually more likely to get what you want.
Yes, shaming rarely gets you the results that you actually want,
Yeah.
which is part of what we're going to go into tonight. Before we do, oh shit, I did things out of order.
That's okay.
We're supposed to do things that we fucked up in the
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah.
The therapy sandwich. So what did you fuck up?
Oh, God bless. I used to be, I used to have great coping mechanisms to where I barely had to remember things. Um, and there are some things where I have just not been on par recently. And I know this because my wife has very self-controlledly, which I don't think is technically a word, but I'm going to use it.
Fuck it, we can use it. It's English. There are no
Uh-huh.
rules.
It's we have rules. It's follow other languages into dark alleys and hit them over the head and go through their pockets for loose grammar.
And integrate it non-cohesively.
Yes, yes, we do things like verb nouns and noun verbs from other languages, and it confuses everybody. It's amazing. It's great fun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Mrs. Dave has been really way more gracious than she probably should in letting me know that I have been not meeting standards here and there, particularly in doing things that require her to do extra work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am working to not respond defensively and angrily, as well as working to make sure she doesn't have a ton of extra work that she has to do.
Yep, and that's a constant effort. You know,
It is.
it sounds like she's treating you like her husband rather than a low-performing subordinate.
There have been times where I've actually been justified in saying, please don't treat me like your subordinate, petty officer. Um, and
That is a dangerous bridge to trod,
dude,
but sometimes necessary.
I save it for when it's really important. Um, I've actually, it turns out I put a lot of points into both charisma and diplomacy. without really meaning to, and so I'm actually pretty good at things like tact.
I have
Usually,
to try it, tact. Ow, I got something in my eye.
you should like see. This is why I want robot parts. Cybernetic bits and pieces that I can replace, because then I could have really good vision.
Yes, without glasses that are constantly getting dirty
Yes.
or being bothered by your eyelashes falling out into your eye.
Yep. Yep. That's a pain. Or you just kind of look over and suddenly your eye just kind of twinges and kind of hurts, and you go, "Wait, what? Why?
Welcome to
Why do
life
I
over
have
40.
why do I have a sharp discomfort curling around my eye?" Because I know that it's not my eyeball that's doing that. I know it's the muscles around my eye. I just don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, I would honestly, I've got biologic replacements for some stuff. I would really like some high quality cybernetics.
Right? I've been desirous of a neural jack for decades, literal decades at this point.
We were born into the wrong cyberpunk dystopia.
Yes, man. That meme cracks me up, but it is so accurate. And it just like where where's my neon jungle? Where's my street samurai?
Where's my exosuit?
Where's my exosuit and my flying cars?
Seriously.
Hmm.
For things that I fucked up. I mean, aside from pushing myself too hard over about the last 2 months to where it was inevitable I was going to get sick and knocked on my ass for most of a week.
Hmm.
Not really, but yeah, I've mentioned repeatedly that I've got a massive task list of stuff that I'm working through,
Hmm.
and between putting in the work on this show, which inevitably takes more time than I thought it would, but I'm trying to keep with the aggressive growth strategy, building out. Now we're on Substack as well.
Yep. Yeah, and
There
we're
will be
both going to be writing on that. That'll be
Yes, there will generally be at least one article a week from each of us going up on Substack. Sometimes they'll be related to this week's topic or to a previous show, but there's going to be a lot of side quests and probably occasional recipes because we're big believers in tangents and side quests,
oh yeah.
and we can do that without derailing a show that already runs to 2 hours. So so we've got the Substacks now up and running. The website is up and running, and I think is actually really good for where we're at in this journey of creating things.
Yeah.
We've got the Facebook group up and running, but I have for the last 8 or 9 weeks basically been running from about 0630 to about 0100 every day, 7 days a week.
You know, I I know what that feels like. That's not always very fun. Chronic sleep deprivation will do a number on everything.
Well, see, part of the problem is it actually is fun
Yeah,
because I'm
and
getting stuff done and I'm like anxiously engaged in stuff all day, and that's invigorating, but I
yeah.
push it beyond the point where it's healthy.
And so then you end up flat on your back for about a week. I may
Yes.
or may not know what that's like.
This is a recurrent cycle for me. I have not figured out how to break it, but
It's called get about 6 more hours in every day, so you can spend 6 more hours doing things that need to be done.
and still sleep for 5 hours.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the downside.
Yeah, if there were more hours in the day, I would find more things to fill them with. And
I
I'm sorry, my
Yeah.
dogs are being idiots in the background.
There. Oh my gosh, my dog can look out the big picture window in the apartment here and see the fence, that the perimeter fence of the base, that squirrels will run along. And then to be clear, there isn't. Do you know what husky? Have you seen what huskies do? Their vocalizations.
Oh yes, I'm well aware.
There is no husky in my dog's lineage. My uh, dork beast's ancestry, as far as anybody is aware.
Hmm.
Um, and she sounds like a 150% sized husky, which makes sense because she also hates baths.
Oh, my dogs hate baths.
If
But my
she, if,
ink, my
yeah, but my dog weighs 90 pounds. Um,
yeah,
she's
mine are all 50 to 60.
hard to bathe. She's genuinely difficult to bathe. Like it's a 2 to 3 hour iteration with both adults making things happen.
Yeah, that's not fun.
It's
My
exhausting.
anxious dog, the one who barks too much,
Yes.
has about 60 different vocalizations.
Yeah.
And yes, he's actually gotten to the point of ignoring the squirrels because we've got so many squirrels all over the place, to the point that the subdivision we're in is some other quaint pastoral animal meadows, and I named my business Squirrely Meadows Woodworks because I have squirrels running rampant over my property all day, every day.
Yeah. And
Even 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 my even my dogs have learned to ignore the squirrels.
they're just so common that it's like, well, that thing doesn't matter. They're everywhere.
But recently, I had him sitting out in the backyard till 4 o'clock in the morning, refusing to come in because there was a raccoon in the neighbor's tree, and he was sitting there below it. It's on the tree goes on the other side of the fence, but grows over our property. This raccoon is about 10 feet above the level of the fence, and he is just sitting there staring at it. He's normally a doofus. I would never expect him to actually be able to hunt and kill and eat anything, although he obviously did growing up on the Indian reservation. And
Sure.
I've seen him grab a mourning dove out of the air and swallow it. But he's a doofus dog. He's run purely by anxiety.
Hmm.
But there's a raccoon in the tree. He is sitting there, laser focused, hyper focused for hours, and would not come inside.
That's amazing.
I finally went out there and picked him up and carried him in. And it took about 40 minutes to get him to stop running up to the door and whining to be let out, to make sure that this raccoon stayed out of his yard.
Ugh.
Fortunately, I can run being awake till 4 or 5 in the morning once or twice in a week. He's a
Yeah.
doofus. Love
Yeah.
him, but
Well,
he's a doofus.
yeah. I can deal with that. I don't like to, but that is one of the secrets that you learn, is that um, food and water, calories and water and exercise in activity can actually substitute for sleep for a certain amount. It's not particularly healthy, but it is doable.
Don't forget the caffeine and nicotine.
Look, I don't like nicotine myself, but I may have downed a monster this afternoon because it was a good idea. Yeah, I see
Um,
that pouch.
I like nicotine. Nicotine makes brain go burr. It's also actually one of the more effective things for treating some of the symptoms of irritable bowel disease, such as my Crohn's disease.
It can also be useful for in self medication for controlling ADD symptoms.
Mhm. Although I thankfully don't have the paradoxical reaction to stimulants, caffeine actually keeps me awake.
Calf it, it helps move me to baseline. I can't tell if that's up or down.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would be the one guy in a German tanker battalion who eats his pens or chocolate and is like, "Wow, how did the world calm down?" While everybody else is vibrating.
I didn't. I'd say I'm not that bad, but I know I'm that bad. Dude, I have this. I have this. I make my own damn fidget toys. Is what happens. I have the a Greek fidget toy. It's a couple of ball bearings knotted in a length of paracord, and you just sit there and twirl it around in your fingers, and it helps me to be able to connect words and make sentences and keep thoughts going when
Yes,
I'm
I don't do that.
conversing with people, and I don't get bored and start thinking of a story I'd like to write in the middle of talking to somebody. It's kind of nice.
Most of my kids
Yeah.
fidget constantly. I'm just
my
like,
my,
it's
my
doing.
eldest is has hit a point where he will, if he's not enjoying the conversation, he will pace around the dinner table, and that's really
He's
distracting.
he's done that at my house
I
where he's
know.
like walking around the table and just pausing at his plate to shovel some food in his mouth and then continues walking.
Hmm.
It's just like, Jesus, kid, can you please sit down? Please.
I, you know, on the one hand, I don't want my children to fear me. On the other hand, I sure really appreciate Machiavelli.
Yeah. So, as
Yeah,
we're talking about aberrant behaviors, let's dive into our planned topic now that we're 45 minutes in and have fucked up our questions three,
that's all right.
which the title for this episode is Program Design and Perverse Incentives. You get what you reward, which we've got a couple of stories to help
Oh,
illustrate this for you. Dave has one that we found out today might not have much historicity behind it, but
yeah.
is a well-known anecdote. So, and it illustrates the principle. So we're going to go with it anyways. So,
Yes.
Dave, what's the Cobra Effect?
The Cobra Effect was a story given to us by a Horst Siebert, an economist who wrote about that in 2001. His book was, as a German economist, his book was Der Cobra Effect, which, for those with a sense of transliteration and there's a word for it, where a word translates directly across. Ah, dang it.
Well,
Anyway,
English mugged German for a whole lot of vocabulary
well,
and then just mispronounced it.
English is uh, a Germanic language using Latin syntax used by French Vikings to get Saxon barmaids to sleep with them. Um,
Well, the Vikings also employed the power of soap to help with that.
yes, yeah, which there are actual historical accounts of uh, Britain and Saxons disgusted with how successful the Danes were in um, carnal conquest by such simple things as bathing regularly and
Ooh.
being
May-
nice.
Maybe I can use. Maybe I can try and use some of the allure of the Viking aesthetic to get my teenage boys to believe more in the power of personal hygiene.
You know, if I can give my son a sword or a spear and a shield, or an axe and a shield, and say, and by the way, if you do this, I'm going to need to wait for a year or two because girls are still of the weird and unknowable rather than the intriguing and attractive.
He'll
Um,
get there soon enough. Now, whether he'll admit that to you is a wholly different question.
you know, speaking of things we're working on, yeah. Um,
Anyways, the
anyway,
Cobra Effect, Dave.
the Cobra Effect. Speaking of side quests, oh my gosh. Okay, hold on while I drink some more whiskey. The Cobra Effect.
Fuck.
Ostensibly, as the story goes, the my ancestors, at least of a certain level, conquered most of the world in order for their spices, and then chose not to use any of them in their cooking. But along the way, they spent a good century and a half or so, couple centuries, um, working to
I'll say more
dominate
than 2 centuries, I think, in the
working to
subcontinent.
dominate the Indian subcontinent, and to varying levels of success. Um, read read the first book of Sharp's Rifles. That's a fascinating uh, account of the Brits in India. Um,
Kipling can also give you some insight into that.
oh goodness, oh goodness! The female of the species is more deadlier than the male. That r- when you read that one, understand that the man knew whereof he spoke. Um, the so the Cobra Effect, in parts that they had conquered, or at least ostensibly conquered, the British got tired of 8-foot snakes coming out of everywhere and killing their men, or at least leaving them poisoned and in agony. And so they offered a bounty. If you could bring in a dead cobra, you would get paid. Well, there was an initial boom on wild cobras
Hmm.
where they would get slaughtered and they would get brought in and presumably made into things like handbags and boots and belts,
Hmm.
possibly wallets.
Also, soup.
However, there was an immediate shortage just thereafter of wild cobras, and so uh, folk, some enterprising natives, took it upon themselves to start breeding cobras,
Hmm.
and thereafter these were delivered to the Brits, who would kept paying this until it became pretty obvious that they weren't actually reducing the population of cobras. They were just hemorrhaging funds from the colonial government. And then afterwards, when the Brits decided they were no longer going to issue this bounty, all of the ersatz cobra farmers uh, released their stock into the wild, and there were even more cobras. Well,
Hmm.
while this seems to have been a bit of a fabrication, I want to say a couple of years ago, at least according to Wikipedia, a couple of years ago, the hold on, this is hilarious. Da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. A 2025 investigation by the Friends of Snakes Society, because there are people who love their danger noodles.
We've had many pet snakes. I love them. We
You
don't
know,
we've never kept venomous snakes though.
snakes have a slightly peculiar smell, but it's really not that strong. And certain species can even be quite cuddly. For those who have read Madeline L'Engle, the Wrinkle in Time series has features a snake rather prominently as a side character, and that was always so intriguing to me because snakes have been a source of fear for humans for kind of ever.
It's because
Um,
they feel vaguely wrong. The whole no legs thing.
no legs, no arms. There are venomous varieties. There are enormous varieties. Anybody ever watch Anaconda? That's a hilarious film. It is so bad.
I haven't watched that since I was a teenager. Which
I
that
saw
was
it
a watch
once.
at Mystery Science Theater at.
I Yeah, I think on television. It everybody should see it once. It is so bad.
Mhm.
But giant snakes are terrifying.
And
At the
feature
same
prominently in
time,
mythology.
yeah, at the same time, they are sources of wisdom and medicine, even mythologically. Like the Asclepius, the Asclepion is the symbol for. It's not actually the caduceus is not actually the medical one. It's the Asclepion,
Mhm.
which is wild to because thing lies we tell children ought to be its own episode. There's just it's so frustrating to grow up and realize that the things you thought you knew you didn't actually know. Anyway, Cobra Effect, the the while that one in particular was the yeah, as I said, the Friends of Snakes Society cast doubt on the historicity of Siebert's anecdote. They found no contemporary records of cobra breeding operations or prosecutions in British India, and traced the story to an 1873 newspaper article that used speculative language rather than confirmed evidence.
So
The
you're saying the
investigation,
mainstream press has always been this reliable?
at least William Randolph Hearst was honest about his efforts in lying to people.
That's true.
But regardless of whether the Cobra effect, it's become a passphrase in terms of the a shortcut for unintended consequences and perverse
Mhm.
incentives. However, there have been plenty of other historical situations where this actually did take place. The Great Hanoi Rat Massacre in French Indochina,
Yes.
when in an effort to curb rats in Hanoi, the French colonial government offered a bounty for each of 1 cent, roughly, for each rat killed. But to collect the bounty, they had to present the tails, and so there was a rash of tailless rats because the people making a living off the bounty would cut off the tails and then just release the rats so they'd make more rats to cut tails off of,
Yep.
which is not what you want when you're looking to get rid of rats.
Yes.
Hamlin was not available for comment.
Which takes us to a concept that gets used fairly often in industry.
Mm-hmm.
We call it Goodhart's Law,
Yeah.
which Goodhart's Law says when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. And this is a thing because business, especially in manufacturing, is one of the applications where it's really obvious and gets used a lot. you're constantly using metrics. You're trying to measure performance and
Yep.
measure improvement or whether things have gotten worse, etc. But the second that you take a metric and decide we're going to focus on this, and this is how we're going to measure our success, it is no longer valid as a measure of progress because people will game the system to meet that target. That is how, both in communist China and under the USSR, the 5-year economic plans worked.
Oh man.
Factories were given quotas,
Yeah.
and in order to meet the quota, numbers were inflated or shoddy quality or practices were
Mhm.
engaged in. There are anecdotal accounts of factories in Soviet Russia that would assemble things and then disassemble them only to reassemble them again in order to meet their quota for number of finished goods that do not actually have finished goods coming out of the factory.
Because they completed building that Yugo 87 times.
And as far as the metrics went, they built 87 cars.
Right. Because all they needed was the inspector to walk in as they were putting the last piece on. Look, that last bolt
Mhm.
is tightened. There you go.
Yeah. So as soon as you take a metric and you make it a target, it ceases to be valid as a metric because people start gaming the system. That is just basic human function. And we do this every day as parents.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
go and we set something up, we're trying, with this desired behavior, except we're actually incentivizing something else. So it's a question: what
Yes.
behaviors are we actually rewarding?
Oh. Have I told you about the plan?
Sure. I just heard Mrs. Dave.
Yeah.
She has
Our
commentary.
our darling elder spawn. This is smart kid problems right here. Um, our darling elder spawn figured out that parents who are asleep cannot forbid activities.
Hmm.
And so they would one of them would stay awake long enough to check on their parents, us, to make sure that we were asleep. And then they would rouse the other child, and the two of them would proceed to spend several hours in the middle of the night eating sweet things and drinking whatever soda was in the house and watching YouTube shorts or anime or whatever the hell was interesting because because they figured out how to use the multi-purpose button on our old television to navigate through the various options for streaming services. Wow.
I have more than once found myself awake at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and going to get going to refill my water bottle or something,
Yep. Use the
and there's a
bathroom.
child and there's a child sitting in a dark kitchen eating ice cream out of the container.
See, that's my job. I'm
And I
dad.
go, what
I
the
put in the
fuck are
time.
you doing?
Yeah.
Or there's a child watching cartoons or watching YouTube, or
Yep.
before it was blocked by the IP address range, playing
Roblox.
Roblox at 3 o'clock in the morning. We've done that. So this, I have a story that we've touched on in the past, but I'm gonna go into again because this is one like the Cobra Effect that really illustrates well how what you think you're incentivizing may not be. And that
Yeah.
was, oh Jesus, what is
Is
getting
this
pinged by things?
is this the homework situation?
No, this is not the homework situation. This comes from work. My
Oh,
last full time employment gig. I came into about 150,000 square foot manufacturing facility. We made motorized pool covers.
Right.
So we had production lines that were doing fabric. We have production lines in the machine shop that were making parts for all the motor assemblies, and every single order we had was custom made because nobody builds swimming pools to standard to standard specification unless you're doing an Olympic sized pool.
Right.
So everything was custom. In manufacturing is pretty unique because there was not a whole ton of standardization that was possible.
Well, and how the heck do you automate that kind of thing? Because that's where
You
savings
can't.
comes in. Yeah, exactly.
Most of it you cannot automate because it would take more time to program for custom orders
Hmm.
than it does to have somebody do it.
Sure.
So we had a full metalworking shop. We actually had a woodworking shop in there. We had a massive amount of space dedicated to fabrics and actually making the covers themselves. We had a full machine shop. We had an area that was doing plastics assembly because they did
Well, yeah,
like water features and stuff. It was
and
this
and it all needs to be chlorine resistant and UV resistant, and oh my gosh,
Yeah, there's a
and
lot going on.
weatherized.
This company had been in business in Salt Lake since like 1957. They actually invented the concept of the motorized pool cover.
That's intense. Those things are awesome.
And more in residential applications are being required by homeowners insurance.
It's safer.
It is.
Yeah.
But so we've got this whole manufacturing facility with a ton of stuff going on. This company's been in business for a long time
Hmm.
and has been acquired multiple times by different multinational firms,
Sure.
and is no longer operating as a small business, operating as part of a big huge conglomerate. And in this case, the owners were based in Spain, so we were dealing with EU requirements, EU reporting requirements. There was all kinds of things going on there. But one of the things I
Were,
was hired for. Go ahead.
were y'all actually selling things in the EU, or was it the owners just
Yes.
based there? And so, okay, so you're actually doing real business in the EU. That, you know,
Yeah, but our parent company was one of the largest players in the pool and spa industry worldwide,
wow.
and they were headquartered in Spain, so they're subject to all the EU stuff.
Hmm.
And somebody pointed out in 2023 that this company had never had a safety program. Yes, nobody had ever implemented a safety program. I was hired as a facility manager and to take over their maintenance department and build a maintenance program because they never actually had any systematized maintenance. They just would hire guys who know how to fix stuff, who would, try and fix stuff as it broke. And they tacked
That's
onto that. Oh,
that's not a good plan, even as a small business,
well,
like
they started
two
out as a
employees
small
kind of thing.
business and then got bigger and bigger to where we were
And
employing 300 people.
when you haven't implemented that thing, when you have three employees, when you're doing it when you have 300 is harder.
Which is why when I put together a maintenance program and started doing actual preventative maintenance and like strategic stocking of parts and systematized things, in 10 months of employment, I increased their labor efficiency by 30%. And
Dang, dude.
they found an extra $10 million in revenue in those 10 months, which amounted to about 15% of our annual production. That completely cleared out their COVID era manufacturing backlog
That's
because
crazy.
their machine uptime went way the hell up
Yeah. Yeah,
because
if your maintenance system is screwy, then you're not making stuff as well
yeah,
as you could.
planned downtime, preventative maintenance, and
Hmm.
actually doing root cause analysis and fixing the root cause of problems rather than just repeatedly fixing the symptoms every 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
They made a huge return on that. And then they didn't pay out my bonus and I quit.
Reasonable.
Because I was supposed to have a 25% performance based bonus, and I added 15% to their annual revenue. They gave me an $800 bonus, and that was where I was like, yeah, you know what? That solidified my decision. I'm retiring in 2 months.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Bye.
But as far as safety program goes,
You're right.
I came into this. It's like, make us a safety program. We know if OSHA were to walk in here today, we would probably get shut down. Their required annual filings with OSHA had not been done for years.
OSHA
Their
doesn't mess
accident
around.
records, no, they don't. I've dealt with them. Their accident records and investigations were almost entirely fabricated and pencil whipped.
Mm.
And so I was told, build this a safety program. And I said, okay. And so I started talking with some of the higher level management there as far as I'm trying to build a coalition and put a plan together and get them behind it because I'm going to implement anything. It's going to cost money, and I'm going to have their support.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked one of them because he'd told me when I started, I have some ideas about safety program. I said, okay, tell me your ideas. And he's telling me about how another place he worked, they had a whole thing that for every quarter that you went with no accidents reported, that there was a party which I hate a pizza party as a reward. Working as an adult is bullshit.
Yeah.
But there's a party, and then there would be giveaways, and if they went a whole year, they actually raffled off a brand new car.
Mm.
And he's telling me, I thought that was so great, and we went 3 years with no reported accidents. I said, you were in a manufacturing environment with 500 employees? He's like, yeah. I said, there is no fucking way you went 3 years with zero accidents.
You had no accident reports.
Exactly. And he says, what do you mean? I said, that's not possible. I
Yeah.
said, it is physically impossible. I said, and let me tell you why that does not work. And he's very confused. And I said, okay, so the goal of the safety program is to prevent people from being injured at work, right? Yeah. I said, okay. We have the data, courtesy of various agencies of the federal government, that shows that for every major accident that results in significant time away from work, loss of life or limb, there are approximately 12 to 15 minor accidents in that same area of work that precede that accident.
Mm.
He
What
goes,
what
yeah.
qualifies as a minor accident in this case?
Technically, technically here in the U.S., any injury that you sustain at work, down to a paper cut, is supposed to be reported. If you need
So
to go
like
get a band-aid from the first aid cabinet, you're supposed to fill out an accident report for that.
I drop a hammer on my toe and it hurts and maybe there's a bruise.
What I have always told people is you report that, and if it's a minor injury that does not require treatment at this time, we
Mm-hmm.
file the report. And then, should that injury be exacerbated and require treatment in a couple of weeks, we already have it documented,
Right.
and we can deal with that. The
Miss,
big one there is back injuries.
Mrs. Dave just said for the military, usually it's anything that causes you to miss any work time.
For me, and I'll explain why. I wanted documentation of minor cuts, of minor sprains. Like I
Right.
said, the really big one there is back injuries, because you can strain a muscle in your back moving things, and most of the time you're fine after a couple of days. Sometimes it takes weeks to heal, and
Yep.
sometimes that leads to re-injury, which leads to a herniated disc and time away from work and surgery and such.
If you've ever thrown your back out, it wasn't what it happens because you bent over and your back just doesn't want to straighten up anymore. But
Um,
the reality is that that kind of injury happens because you did something else
yeah.
and
Um,
set up yourself up for real injury.
let's see. 7 years ago, I had to have a microdiscectomy because I severely herniated my L4 L5 disc.
Hmm.
You know how I did that? I coughed while I was brushing my teeth. I was leaned over the faucet, coughed,
Uh-huh.
and tweaked my back muscles just right, and I severely herniated the disc. I had almost complete blockage of the sciatic nerve in one side, extremely painful.
Yeah.
Was in for surgery a week and a half later. Basically, as soon as they got imagery of it, I was in surgery like 3 days later.
Yeah.
But the point is that major injuries that have serious effects on people, because my motto
Yeah.
has always been, we work to live, we do not live to work. And part of that means that as an employer, and as I've worked in management for a long time, is that I need to build an environment in which work is not having deleterious effects on the lives of my employees. You're working for a paycheck, and to be able to provide for your kids and be able to go home and spend time with your kids, your job should not leave you in such pain that you are unable to do that when you go home. So
Hmm.
knowing that we have when you're dealing with violent assaults, they're pre-attack indicators.
Right.
They're all, if you are capturing it, there is always data that tells you where you are most likely to have a serious injury happen in the workplace.
Right.
So what you want is to be collecting all the data on the minor things, because those tell you where your systems are not working and need to be tweaked,
And so you
and
don't
then
have
you prevent
somebody
the
getting,
major injuries.
yeah, you don't have somebody losing a limb or dying messily and preventably.
Yes. However, if you are incentivizing having no reported accidents, you are now creating social pressure amongst everybody to not
Yeah.
be the person who fucked that up.
Which means you're not actually preventing injuries, you're just preventing the data that could prevent major injuries.
Yes. Rather than incentivizing safe workplace practices, you are incentivizing shutting up about it and not reporting it.
Well,
Which,
that's not good.
yeah, which if your actual goal is to ensure that you are creating the systems that make the workplace as I won't say unhazardous because that's unrealistic, but has the minimal number of controllable hazards going on, you have to know where the mistakes are happening.
Yes.
One of the things I did. Well, I'll get to that in a second. So I told this guy, I said, "This is what you're actually incentivizing when you do that." And he goes, "Well, yeah, because you don't want reported accidents." I said, "No." I said, there in OSHA parlance, there is a difference between reportable and recordable. Recordable accidents have to meet a certain threshold of treatment required that have to be reported to OSHA on your annual reports. Any incident is supposed to be reported,
Right.
but is not. If all it needs is a band-aid, you don't have to go to work med for sutures. That is not a OSHA recordable accident.
So dropping a tack hammer on your foot and bruising a toe is probably not a big deal. Potentially even breaking a toe, provided you can actually do your work, is not that big a deal. Simply because there's not really a good treatment option. But if you sever a toe, you're in big trouble, which means that OSHA is going to really want to know about that.
Well, even OSHA recordables only stand out when you are. outside of industry norms, because
Mm-hmm.
they actually have fairly reasonable expectations that there are going to be injuries in physical
Well,
job sites. That is
and
guaranteed.
manufacturing is not a particularly safe industry at any level, really. You have
No,
machinery. Machinery does not care about flesh.
no, especially high speed rotating machinery.
Mm-hmm.
So I explained to this executive, no, what we want to do is we want to incentivize people reporting every minor injury,
Yeah,
because that's going to give us the data to see where we need to fix things.
yeah, and
As,
so having like an all hand call and saying, hey, this is why we're doing this. We want you to report all of these things. We're looking to avoid these things. And by the way, you're not going to be penalized for any of this.
I went a step beyond that, because he then said, okay, that makes sense. What is your plan? I
Mm-hmm.
said, give me a budget of $1,000 a month. He said, what the hell are you going to do with that? I said, I've already designed these cards. I said, I'm going to distribute these to every member of our management team.
Mm-hmm.
And these are going to be given to individuals who are visibly following safe practices that we are trying to encourage. And I'm going to be giving these out to every person who reports an injury. He says, then what are you going to do with them? I said, every month, these are going to go in a box, and at the monthly safety meeting, we are going to draw 10 of those cards, and we're
Yep.
going to give a $100 Amazon gift card to every one of those individuals.
Yep. Yeah, because if you incentivize the reporting, it's easily falsifiable. You just check on people. You know if they got injured because you can physically check on them and say, where's the injury?
Well, the chances of being drawn on the raffle were not necessarily high enough for people to start gaming that, although I was watching for it.
Sure.
But in my case, I set up a mailbox outside my office.
Mm-hmm.
There were blank incident report forms all over the plant. If you need to grab a band-aid, they went next to all the first aid stations.
Yep.
If you need to grab a band-aid, if you need to take a
Get
Tylenol,
out.
I want you to take 2 minutes, fill out this half-page form, drop it in my mailbox. I'm going to enter that into my system to track all this data, and then I'm going to put your name on one of these cards and drop it in the box for the monthly raffle.
Right.
And that's one of the other things is you want to incentivize your desired behavior. You also need to make sure the incentives matter.
How much are you willing to pay for your data?
Basically,
Yeah.
in this case, I looked at most of our manufacturing staff were making 15 to $20 an hour.
Sure.
Not great wages. Not most of it's not most of it wasn't terribly high skilled labor though either.
Mm-hmm.
And being given free lunch, nobody gives a shit about that.
Right.
The pizza party is so overdone that it has become a meme itself. Everybody
That
goes, "Oh joy, we get Little Caesars at work."
right. Hot and
Nobody
ready.
cares about that.
Yeah.
However,
$100
seeing
Amazon.
people you work with every month being given $100 Amazon gift card, that's nice to have.
Yeah.
That's
That's
that's enough money to actually have an impact.
that's
And with
that's going
10
to
of them
cover a
every
chunk,
month,
like somebody's birthday gifts.
seriously,
That's going to cover some, a portion of Christmas. That's going to cover a grocery bill.
yeah, it's enough to actually matter and for people
Yeah.
to appreciate giving. It's not a free lunch or I think the worst one I've ever seen is you get a certificate to have lunch with your boss.
That's not an incentive.
Um, any place I've worked that did stuff like that was definitely not an incentive.
Yeah.
People working for me, it may have actually been, but I really put effort into that. So
Well, sure.
I explained we're going to incentivize the behaviors we want. We're going to reward people for visibly following best practices,
Hmm.
and we are going to reward people for reporting these minor injuries because we're going to find with these minor injuries we're going to find where we need to fix things in order to prevent major injuries. And he was like, I'm skeptical, but I'll support this. I
Right.
says, you seem to know what you're talking
Well,
about.
frankly, 1,000 a month is 12,000 a year for a business of that size. When you've got 300 employees, that's
We had
tiny.
150 employees. We ran about
Okay.
$75 million a year in revenue.
That's
It's a
that's
drop in the bucket.
that's a rounding error.
It really is. It was
You,
still like pulling teeth to get that budget approved, but I got it,
sure.
and I started doing this.
Well,
And after about 6 weeks, I found we had lots of people who were slicing themselves with X-Acto knives and box cutters.
yeah, yeah,
And I said, okay, let's see what the options are for something that works better. And so, so I went and started looking at various, safety box cutters, etc. There's various types, and most of them suck. And I bought small test batches, and I gave them out, to people. I said, I want you to use this for a week
yeah,
and tell me whether it works or not. And if it sucks, tell me why it sucks.
yeah.
And we eliminated about 10 different models and found that Milwaukee makes one that looks just like your standard $3 X-Acto knife, but the blade retracts. You have the little lever on the back that you push the blade out with,
Yeah.
and it auto retracts when you let your thumb off.
Yep.
And that
Which
people
means
can
you
still
don't
use
have an
effectively.
exposed blade.
And as soon as you come off, you let your
Hmm.
thumb go. The blade retracts, and people said, "Yeah, we can still use this." Unlike the ones with the silly guards that get gummed up with tape and various other things. And I said, "Okay, cool." And then I went and I bought 200 of them,
Hmm.
handed them out to everybody. I collected everybody else's other knives and said, "Okay, anybody who is seen you not using one of these knives is going to receive a written warning."
Right. Because the
And
penalty, there needs to be a penalty, but it needs to be relatively light, because you're
yeah,
looking to correct a behavior, not punish people.
yes. And it took about 3 weeks to get to pretty good compliance with that.
Hmm.
And I went from receiving 3 or 4 reports of cuts every week to 1 or 2 a month.
So, you went from 12 to 16 a month. Actually, more. It's going to end up being more like 15 to
20-ish,
15 to
15 to
20 ish
15 to 20 every month,
to a
less than two.
couple. To
The average came out at like 1.6 per month.
dude, that's like a couple orders of magnitude right
And
there.
half of those were people who were not using the provided safety knife.
Yeah,
So correcting for that, we dropped from 15 to 20 a month to about zero point 0.7, zero point 0.8 per month,
that's amazing.
which also meant that we did not have 1 to 2 people going in for sutures per quarter.
Right.
We applied this approach in over 10 months. I cut $100,000 out of our workman's comp expenditures by rewarding people for reporting the minor injuries and then making use of that data to improve the processes.
Yeah. So you spent a tenth of what was saved. So man, that's a lot of savings.
And that is the power of understanding psychology and understanding incentives.
Okay, so how do we apply that to parenting?
You have to think, and you have to think of those second and third order effects.
Okay,
For example, the parent who expects a 4.0 GPA every semester. what is the actual effect of that you observed in people that lived that, Dave?
I'll be really honest. I don't know that any of the parents of my friends actually expected a 4.0. But I'm gonna speculate that you end up with teenagers with ulcers,
Well, it
or
it does cause lots of anxiety.
anxiety disorders, depression, eating disorders. Um, I, if okay, there's a my parents expected me to do, quote unquote, my best. They expected me to give a good effort.
Hmm.
I did not get a 4.0 because I feuded with a teacher in one class in high school and ended up not doing as well as I should have.
Okay.
My parents didn't care one way or that. They were kind of disappointed, but as a 15-year-old, it's not that surprising. And I, you know, she was wrong, man.
I, on the other hand, I would get grounded for having an A minus on a report card.
That's insane.
Um, and penalties increased if it was actually a B, or
Hmm.
my senior year when I deliberately got a couple of C's to bring my GPA just below graduating with honors to in order
Yeah,
to spite my parents because
yeah, right.
oppositional defiance disorder is could just be defined with a little picture of me.
Well, we've talked about Chad Garnier.
Yeah. So for me,
Hmm.
I kind of decided that I was not going to meet that it was an impossible to meet standard. So why try?
Yeah. Whereas I know people who pursued extreme academic excellence and made it in the hopes of receiving approval and affection from parental units who couldn't be bothered to give it.
Yes. And we've touched on in the past making your rules too strict, or
Too
there's a
lenient.
whole show and me ranting about this zero tolerance policies,
Hmm.
because zero tolerance when it intersects with the real world just never actually works because the world really is in shades of gray.
Yeah. Well, humans are very messy and very complex, and zero tolerance is a lovely idea. But like communism, it requires functionally angels to, you know, things think perfect beings who are programmed to do perfect things in the perfect way. Humans ain't perfect.
Yeah, instead what that incentivizes, rather than the desired good behavior, it incentivizes not getting caught.
Yeah.
If you were going to be insanely strict with your kids, and I did this, I watched it in my peers, I have watched it in my kids' peers,
Hmm.
you are not incentivizing the desired behavior. You are incentivizing them to not get caught, which
You're
actually teaches them to be very good at lying, at being sneaky, and being good at deceiving you
Yeah.
by presenting the expected picture while doing the exact opposite.
And the danger of that is you're going to catch them eventually in a lie, in a deception, at which point you don't know what the hell you can trust
Uh huh.
out of them. This is actually an issue that we've had here and there where it's been clear somebody has been engaged in poor choices
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know. You don't know. You don't know.
You
Oh,
don't know the
well,
extent because they've gotten very good at hiding it from you.
hey, I have to do this thing this thing that is a very time sensitive. I have to go do that. I need to leave you. on your own recognizance. I have to trust you to try to do the thing to do this task or this set of tasks, and I get back and I can't verify that you've done it. Where's the thing? Where's the proof?
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the good examples of what are you actually incentivizing? Are you incentivizing the desired behavior, which in the case of school is you want the kid engaged, you want them learning to follow through with assignments, even if they're dumb,
Yeah.
because that ends up being such a huge part of working anywhere. And is
Yep.
one of the challenges with smart kids is they're like, I already understand this concept. I don't need to practice it this much.
Dude, I
Well,
I almost I almost got a C in sixth grade math because I refused to do pages of 30 or 40 long division, three digits into eight digits, because I did the first three of them and said, I get the principles. I don't need to do the rest of these.
yeah. And how would that how would that attitude work in the Navy
You
when you're given an
know,
assigned task and you go, yeah, I think I've met the principle of this while not actually completing the standard as written. It's good enough.
it's not great. Dereliction of duty does not come with particularly positive consequences, shall we say.
No, and you've brought this up in the past, talking about training people who are working in intelligence and how and the requirements for secure facilities.
Mm-hmm.
In the part, is in the parlance, a skiff
Yep.
is a room in which no outside electronics are permitted. Correct?
Room, several rooms, complex buildings, secure
Depends.
compartment uh, secure, secure compartment and information facility. It can be a room. I know there was when I was in language school, there was basically the skiff in the detachment was a room, and it had a combination lock on the door, and there was a log, and if anybody went in there, they had to sign in and they had to sign out, and all kinds of stuff. When I was actually working, it was the entire freaking building. You badged in, you badged out.
You put your
Uh,
phone in a locker.
you left your phone. You left your phone in the car. You put you leave it at home. Something your recording devices are not allowed unless the uh, the yeah, lockers are a relatively new thing. They did not have those when we were um, uh, pathetic little sniveling junior enlisted members in these United States Navy. The Even at this point, there are plenty of folks who will just set their phones out because you're on base, and the vast majority, the preponderance of people are plenty honest and don't care about your phone because they've got their phone.
Yeah, you don't have
Um,
crackheads rifling through people's cars on base generally.
right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
my father-in-law, who's a retired Air Force colonel, works for a defense contractor right now, and he spends his entire day in a skiff. We have our weekly well it's a skiff building.
Hmm.
We have our weekly meetings with their building contractor as we're going through and we're approving plans and stuff. And if he is at work, he has to go out to his car to use his phone to be able to do this teleconference.
Yep.
He tries to
Either
arrange it so that he's working from home that day.
yeah,
It doesn't
either
always work
that
out.
or you call a particular phone number, and there's a slight delay, and there might be somebody listening to it, but I guarantee that's being recorded for information purposes. There are all kinds of stories about that.
Yeah, but what you've relayed in the past is in training as everybody's being taught the proper
Oh,
procedures for working in controlled facilities that the The Navy had learned that giving severe punishments for minor infractions of protocol led to people refusing to report their minor errors as opposed to being able to use those as learning opportunities.
Yes. See, the Air Force has been leaning the wrong direction recently and hammering junior enlisted for getting to for first infractions. Literally, I have never been I have never had to deal with this before, and I forgot to leave my phone outside, and then they get hammered. They get I don't think it's at the NJP level, but they get reduced, the loss of privileges. Basically, they don't get to wear civvies. They don't get to go off base. They get a curfew. They get yelled at by drill instructors regularly.
I assume extra duty comes in there as well.
They're
Or
probably
or
not.
does extra duty fall under Article 15's?
No. Oh, yeah. You have to commit an infraction to get extra duty. There are, at least with the Navy, there are other options. Um, was the EMI, extra military instruction, where you can functionally, you're given the opportunity to do some research on the typically on the subject of your infraction and present that to people who are aware of such things, because they probably did the same thing when they were junior enlisted as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a great way to learn things without having to uh,
Suffer severe consequences.
well, go to NJP, non-judicial punishment, which can result in loss of pay, in loss of freedom, as in literally you go to the brig for 2 months, and worst case scenario, you're on bread and water for a couple of days,
Or you are now non-promotable for this, for this cycle.
or you're non-promotable, or the point of it probably is still this way. There has been a zero tolerance policy on DUI for a couple of decades, where if you get a DUI, you're done. Your military career is over.
I have a harder time saying you need to be more lenient on DUI because that is serious consequences.
Yeah, equally, I actually, okay. Here's my issue: is I believe that actually stems from perverse incentives related to alcohol. The military
Yeah.
has historically had a love affair with all forms of intoxication for all of human history. If you don't think that your 18 and 19-year olds are curious and interested and will take advantage of high proof opportunities, then I've got a bridge to sell you. Uh,
I've got a high speed rail system for the state of California. I could sell you
yes,
if you believe in that shit.
miles and miles. I will get you from San Fran to LA in an hour and a half. Um,
Continue giving me blank checks. You stupid
you
rube.
know, if I could just sleep at night, I would be happy to cash those checks. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, Mrs.
Unfortunately, there are
Dave said.
people who don't have your sense of ethics.
Uh, Mrs. Dave said the Navy is apparently unusual in that extra military instruction is required to be directly related to the infraction. So if you have the wrong kind of toy in your glove box when you get a random vehicle inspection, and that gets brought to the attention of, say, base police and then your leadership, you're probably going to get to research the local weapons regulations,
Yep.
rules and regulations, and then present that information. Yeah, as a random non-specific example that I haven't been close to myself.
Thankfully.
You
But
know, that may or may not have been an awkward evening. I'm just saying.
but there's a point where minor infractions have to be expected. And if you over penalize them, what you are incentivizing is not getting caught. When what
Yeah.
you actually want to be doing is being able to take those expected minor infractions, especially when you're dealing with developing brains, the
Yes.
recurring theme here is you want to use the minor mistakes they make as opportunities for learning.
Yes.
As we have become fond of saying, go forth and make new and interesting mistakes instead of making the
Right.
same one over and over.
Yeah.
So when unfortunately, sometimes you do have to impose consequences. Um, I'm a big fan of the natural consequences, such as, well, you know what,
Yep.
you did not do your homework, and now you've got a quarter to make up in summer school,
Yeah. You're
and
going to have an awkward conversation with a teacher, and you might have an unpleasant conversation with an administrator, and then you're going to have a lot of hours that you could have been doing something fun, and instead you're going to be making up those credit hours.
but I'm going to be making sure that you're doing the entire packet to make up that credit over the summer
Yep.
break.
If I have to
Like
sit next to you and check off pages as you complete them, I will be doing that.
I have done
And that's
that.
not going to be
It was
fun
for
for
a
anybody.
scheduled 2 hours every day, 5 days a week for 3 weeks until the packet was completed. And that was not fun for me. I think it was
Nope.
less fun for the child involved. But you know what? The next school year, she didn't fail any classes.
Didn't have that problem again.
No.
Go make more
So,
interesting mistakes, child.
so yes, one of the things with perverse incentives, you get too strict or you put too severe consequences on the minor infractions.
Yeah.
You teach them how to lie and how to not get caught, rather than teaching the good behavior. So, what we actually want to reward is honesty and early
Hmm.
reporting of problems.
Right.
Which in my example from work is reporting your minor injuries. You needed to get a band-aid, send me a report about it so I know how that happened and can look at, oh, hey, this keeps happening, we've got a problem here. Or I
Okay.
can go, okay, this seems to have been a one-off.
So
Or
what is
sometimes
that?
it was, well, you were being a dumbass, and
Right.
we're now going to do some corrective training on how to properly do your job because you were not
Yeah.
following the proper procedure, and
And
that's
we're
why
get,
you hurt yourself.
and we're going to make a note so that if you do this again, we can check back and show you that note, and you're going to sign that note. The Navy at least has a whole system of counseling where there is, a verbal counseling. Hey, you effed up. Don't F up again. Do you
Hmm.
understand how you effed up? Yes, I understand how I effed up. Okay, don't do that again. You're not going to do that again, right? Yeah, I'm not going to do that again. Okay, sign here saying you're not going to do that again. Because then you've created a paper trail and they know that they done effed up.
Hmm.
And so if they F up again, then you can drop like the hammer of God.
Yeah. In that factory, the highest cost incidents that we had generally were not related to actual injuries, but product
Hmm.
damage and machine
Hmm.
damage were
Hmm.
forklift accidents.
Yeah.
Because forklifts driving around a busy manufacturing plant where people put stuff where it shouldn't be, where the driver's not paying attention, are the management offices for the actual production units were
Sure.
in a set of offices in the middle of the floor, and so there were stairs going up. I had the stairs taken out by somebody driving a forklift, not paying attention to the fact that their mast was 14 feet tall because we had
Wow.
four-level pallet racks, and he took out most of the stairwell while somebody was on it.
Oh, that's exciting. That's a bad day for several people.
Yes, that was. Ooh. I, as a senior manager, found myself with a rafter square and a circular saw cutting new stair stringers out of 16 foot 2x12 in order to immediately remediate this problem.
I'll say 16-foot 2x12s will make some really good stringers, though.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I know how to do that,
Right,
and that was an acceptable temporary fix until we got a registered, a licensed contractor in there to rebuild the stairs.
right.
But that person was at the top landing. They could have fallen 25 feet. That can kill somebody.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
And
Um,
so
wow.
our
Oof.
approach with our approach with the people who were certified to drive forklifts, because that was by far the most dangerous thing that we had going on and led to the most losses,
You're familiar with
was
forklift driver Hans, right?
vaguely. I haven't seen any stuff from him in a while.
There is an amazing video. It's I believe a German company, um, where a forklift driver Hans is screwing up by the numbers. It's amazing. It's worth looking up. It's on YouTube. Forklift driver Hans.
Forklift driver Hans, everybody, go look it up.
Yeah.
But our forklift accidents always cost a lot of money
Oh
and
yeah.
always had the potential for severe injury. And
Well,
so, on one hand, the incentivizing doing things right, like the forklift drivers actually wearing their seatbelt,
right.
that was a big one, and
Well, it's
that led to a number of major injuries because somebody was ejected over the front of their forklift when they hit
mm-hmm.
something. So I put the management team to put a laser focus on the forklift drivers, and when they were doing things as they were supposed to, because there were situations and areas that were designated, they had to have a spotter
Right.
when they were maneuvering things. Such as when we were loading trucks, because I got really tired of paying $5,000 every time somebody took out a panel on one of our roll up doors.
Yeah.
If you were going in and out of one of the truck bays loading a truck, you had to have somebody there watching and making sure that you didn't have your mast up too high and take out one of my fucking doors again.
Right. Well, because
And
that's not just
there was some. Go
yeah,
ahead.
that's not just a safety issue. That's also a security issue.
Yes, when it's Friday afternoon and I now have a roll up door that is sitting open to the entire factory that has a couple $1 million worth of stock and machinery.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't get somebody out to fix that until Monday, we have to pay somebody to literally sit there and make sure that no unauthorized person comes into the plant and steals shit or starts things on fire, which had happened prior to me being hired there.
Well, because let's be honest, chain link fence, even if you've got barbed or razor wire over the top, is not that hard to defeat.
And crackheads can be really determined.
Yeah, especially if they're jonesing for a fix or on something already, then they're not really gonna discount pain.
They do. So forklift accidents we had to take very seriously because they always had serious consequences.
Sure.
And so we leaned hard on incentivizing them when they were visibly doing things correctly. I mean,
Right.
honestly, about a third of those cards that were given out to the 20 people who drove forklifts regularly.
There you go.
But that was our highest cost point for accidents, and honestly had the most potential for severe injury of somebody.
Yeah.
And the thing was, it was you have one accident, you now get to go through the 4-week forklift certification course again, which prior to implementing the policy, we audited and expanded the forklift certification program
Yeah.
and made sure that anybody who had not completed the program who was seen driving a forklift was put on their final warning prior to being terminated
Sure.
because it
No,
was that serious.
that makes complete sense. One of the things in the military is that you have to take a usually twice, yearly physical fitness assessment tests, basically.
Hmm.
And one of the consistent things is for people who do very well on that, who have what you're basically doing is demonstrating that you have a habit of fitness. You end up getting special liberty, a day or two off that you can use, some kind of
Hmm.
special privilege, and that's not small.
No, it
Uh,
isn't, especially when you're junior enlisted.
it genuinely encourages people to work out regularly.
Hmm. So where this was where we noted this was serious and we did need to impose serious consequences.
Yeah.
On one hand, we made sure the training program was actually adequate to the task,
Hmm.
and then we leaned heavily on incentivizing people for doing it right.
Yeah.
If you see somebody who is who is actively working with a spotter in one of the designated areas, you hand them both one of those cards every time you see it.
There you go.
That's one of my belief in management by walking around,
Yeah.
being aware of what's going on, seeing things, and interacting with your subordinates helps build rapport, helps them feel less like you're just dictating to them from an office,
Yeah.
but it also makes sure that you're more informed and it gives you opportunities to praise people when they're doing things well,
Hmm.
to say, hey, are you okay? You don't seem all here today, and find out that there's serious shit going on in their personal lives and have the opportunity to help them work around that a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I've gotten in trouble as a manager for being too lenient with people and understanding when they've got personal things going on and making some accommodations for them. I have
Yeah.
always stood by that because the return 9 times out of 10 far exceeds the amount of leniency that I have extended.
Well, you end up building loyalty, um,
Exactly.
because you don't have to. The relationship there is transactional.
It is.
Inherently, there are power dynamics. They're exchanging their time and their portions of their lives for money, and
Mm-hmm.
that's everybody does it. But at the same time, if you show human empathy and understanding and are willing to help them out when things are rough, they will reciprocate with, I will do extra when it's not required.
Yes. It
Almost always.
it really does. You treat people like they're people,
Yeah.
and yeah, some of them will take advantage of you.
Oh, sure.
I have come to this decision, as a boss and employer, and in my personal life, I would rather be the person who extends a little too much grace and occasionally gets taken advantage of by somebody
Yeah.
than persistently be the asshole who just does not care. And
Yeah.
as much as I still have a reputation for being a bit of an asshole, um, I've consciously made the decision to put myself in this situation where occasionally somebody's going to take advantage of my kindness, and when they do, they are now persona non grata. They can fuck right off.
Well, the other half of that is that when when somebody is taking advantage, that is because of a persistent pattern of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
They are the kind of person who takes advantage. They are looking for opportunities to take advantage, and they're going to get caught taking advantage.
Yeah, and when they do,
Going to
then
come out eventually, and they're going to
fuck
get
up.
hammered. Yeah.
I'm not going to extend you leniency when you've taken advantage of it. But
Well,
the vast
and
majority of people don't. And it actually does lead to some bottom up and top down loyalty. And I've
yeah,
maintained that if you expect bottom up loyalty, you first have to extend loyalty from the top down. And that
absolutely.
applies in the workplace and it applies in your family.
Yeah. In the military, the loyalty is both up and down the chain of command, and it doesn't work if it's only one direction.
That's
period.
correct.
And with the kids, yeah, you'd better be honest and consistent.
Hmm.
One of the issues that we have always had is, in fact, that consistency. Um, Children thrive when there are clear expectations and routines,
And clear boundaries.
and uh, neurospiciness is crap at all three typically,
It is.
and it
But
makes things very hard.
yeah, to resolve the bit about forklifts, where this was serious consequences, you had
Hmm.
one accident, you had to redo the certification program,
four
and
weeks,
then yes,
probably on their own time. I had a guess.
no, they were still they were at work and they were doing work mandated things.
Okay,
They're compensated exactly the same
all right,
because especially well, I have a whole rant about the abuse of salaried people. But hourly
yeah,
workers, if they are there and they are doing something you are making them do, they better damn well be on the clock. If you're making them show up for a party, you better fucking be paying them.
yeah.
I am known as an asshole to my superiors about that kind of stuff. I will
I
not make somebody who's getting paid by the hour do something off the clock.
in
You
When I
can
was in
fire my
college,
ass before I'm going to make them do that.
right? When I was in college, I worked one summer at a tech firm uh, whose their product was tech support for all kinds of people. Um, and a buddy and I were hired by the basically directly by the CEO because we'd gone backpacking with him through church related stuff a couple of years earlier. Um, but we ended up running a high school student age internship program there that summer, and it was amazing opportunity, a lot of fun. I got to go tromp through a an unfinished nuclear reactor, which is one of those things you just yes,
That
yes,
would be awesome.
dude, it was amazing. It was that the coolant tank is one piece stainless steel, 25 million gallons,
And every weld on that is inspected via X-ray multiple times.
and it's worth tens of millions of dollars, and they can't sell it
Yep.
because no one will buy it. And the cost of moving it is insane. Uh,
Hmm.
it, but I've so two truths and a lie. I usually say I've been inside a nuclear reactor, and people just don't believe it. But it's
Oh, it's before the
so
fuel
cool.
rods were installed.
Well, they never, and that's the thing, they never were. SATSUP, nuclear facility in Washington State, Western Washington, outside of Elma. It was never finished. It got to about 80%, and then the project was halted. And the coolant towers are still there, at least as far as I know. Um, and they were converting some of the buildings and building more buildings into a tech campus in the hopes of offsetting some of the maintenance costs because they have to maintain it. They have to keep that stuff from becoming too dangerous, and that's a very expensive prospect for a nuclear facility.
I'll have
But
everybody know that I am suppressing the hell out of a 40-minute rant here on fission power that
we,
goes way too far into politics for this show.
I had that, I had half of that conversation with a buddy we know who is decidedly more liberal than I art, um, and is actively opposing a data center going in here in San Angelo. Um, and I I just cheap energy should not scare people. That's as far as I'm going. So, but
Yeah,
my buddy and I got tasked with a couple of other employees to plan the annual company picnic, and the
I hate
the
those.
important the important well We did a pretty damn good job. People seemed to be having a good time. We got good catering. We had some fun events and activities there, and people got paid and didn't have to. They got paid. That was the upshot of it. They got paid to be there.
Yeah, that has been one of my hobby horses. Is
And
if we're gonna have a party, hourly people should get paid for it if they're expected to be there.
I got to sit in the driver's seat of the CFO's new Ferrari too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So back to forklifts. The other side of
Forklifts,
that, the
different
other side of that,
beast.
you had to redo the certification program,
Yes.
which also involved a fair amount of hazing that I may not have really stomped on very hard
Well,
because
look,
there is, I mean,
there
there is a point of allowing some amount of social pressure to help with your behavior modification.
there is no pressure like social pressure.
I mean, frankly, if you have to redo the certification program after driving a forklift for a year and a half, you probably should be made fun of a little bit because you got complacent in something that you knew was a big deal.
Yeah.
So some people are not okay with that. A certain amount of hazing was certainly overlooked on my part because I wanted the social pressure. Well, I wanted the social pressure to be aimed towards people doing better,
Yeah.
not hiding their fuck ups.
Yes.
It
Um,
is a very fine line, and there's a lot of gray areas around it. But
you have to be able to trust people to act like adults.
and some people are not capable of acting like adults, and you fire their asses. That's all you do.
Yeah.
But after
Mm-hmm.
you redid the certification program, you had 6 months on probation. If you had another accident, you were given the option of discontinuing your employment or moving
Mm-hmm.
to a different job that did not include driving a forklift.
And out of curiosity, were people who were forklift certified, did they get a pay bump for that?
They did not get a pay bump for it, but their positions start at $2 an hour higher than the regular production staff.
Yeah, that's a
So
firm incentive.
so generally if you were moved into a different department, you were looking at $1 to $2 an hour in reduction of pay. And yeah, everybody kind of went, "You're not going to do that." Um, the first time we followed through, I ended up calling the police because this guy threw an absolute shit fit when he was told, "Well, you can go work in the fabric department. We've got openings there, or you can choose to discontinue your employment today because you are no longer going to be placed in a position of trust behind the wheel of a forklift."
Yeah.
And he started punching holes in the wall, and he was arrested and and trespassed from the facility.
So he got to deal with a police record. He got to deal with possibly some time in jail. He got to deal with an invoice for the repair work to the facility.
The repair work exceeded $1,000, so he got a felony vandalism charge.
Oof.
I I do not know if the prosecutors went through with that or if they let him plead down to a misdemeanor. He probably did. But that one incident, everyone went, "Oh, holy shit, you guys are serious."
Mm-hmm.
And
Look, if
over the next 8 months, I had one person with a repeat accident
mm-hmm.
who who actually he hit a fire sprinkler line
Ouch,
and
that's
he did
expensive.
that and and he contacted the right person, which was me, to get that
Right.
leg of the system shut off, and we could get the the fire system maintenance people out there that day.
Yep.
And after we dealt with the immediate consequences, he came into my office, handed me his badge, and said, I'm sorry, but I guess this means I'm done. And I said, you don't want to move to another department? He says, no, I do not. Everything else here is bullshit. And I said, well, that's fair. Let me go grab your boss, so we can inform him, and this will be your last day of employment.
Yeah.
And
There's
he genuinely made a pretty understandable mistake, but he'd been negligent in the past, and we had to follow through
yeah
with it. I felt bad. I have I've fired a lot of people, even when it has been so thoroughly deserved. I hate doing it.
yeah
I
because they're
do not
people
take joy in
and
firing people, but sometimes you have to.
yeah.
I felt like an
Okay.
asshole, but you know what? Sometimes you have to be a bit of an asshole if you're going to maintain the appropriate boundaries.
Yeah. So how does this translate into parenthood? How do we do better as parents knowing this?
Well, there are occasionally things for which you need to impose severe consequences.
Yeah.
You need to, one, decide ahead of time where that line in the sand is for you,
Hmm.
and you need to communicate it, and you need to communicate what the consequences are, and then should it happen, you have to follow through.
You have to follow through. You cannot be inconsistent.
Yes. I mean, the whole idea is to look at what you're actually incentivizing. And really, as we said, as we did a whole episode on, the goal is to raise them to be happy, healthy, independent adults, to be functional in the real world, not to have obedient children. I don't want perfect children. I want kids who will tell me when they've made a mistake so that I can help them learn from it. So you design your systems, you design your incentives and your consequences to make it so the easiest path is doing the right thing, and to make it so that the inevitable small infractions are
Hmm.
opportunities for learning rather than, you know, effectively career ending fuck ups.
Yeah.
So do you want your kid telling you the week before the semester ends that, by the way, I'm failing 3 classes because I haven't been able to figure out how to do these projects? Or do you want them coming to you and saying, hey, I'm having trouble with this project. Can you help me figure out what the hell's going on? Or, hey, my access to the course content got fucked up somehow. The district's been doing IT stuff. Can you help me get it fixed? Because my teacher doesn't know what to do.
Right.
And if we can address a problem early, or we can say, oh, hey, you need some help with this? Okay, let's help you.
Yeah.
Let's
And
with my oldest son, we've done a whole lot of, okay, how much structure do we need to provide to get you doing your homework consistently?
yeah. Well, and
And
especially with the way schools are leaning on online everything. Um, and a simple IT
and
screw up
Canvas
can,
being a complete piece of shit of software.
because it always is.
Instructure, go fuck yourselves. I've dealt with your shit for 20 years and you've never done it well. Canvas is second maybe to Windows for just being a continuously shitty piece of software.
Yeah.
But that's another 40-minute rant. Canvas is terrible, but everybody's
Fair.
using it.
Well, because it's I I'm going to just very clearly hesitate to speculate on this, but I have speculations.
There are kickbacks involved,
You know,
guaranteed.
graft is an unfortunate reality of human existence.
Yes, it is a constant throughout all of human existence.
Hmm. And
But
there are arguments that it should be made clear and uh, obvious and that is toxic for humanity, even if it smooths things out in some ways. Anyway,
It contravenes building a high trust society.
it does. It absolutely does.
So,
What
if
behaviors are you incentivizing?
exactly, are you incentivizing not getting caught, or are you incentivizing saying, "Hey, I'm having trouble with this. Can you please help me?"
Yeah,
Or are you incentivizing them saying, "Hey, Dad, I fucked up.
yeah.
Dad,
We
I wasn't paying attention and I crashed the car."
When I was 15, I think, we had, or 16, we had an exchange student from Ukraine, and one of the things she asked when she got to the States was, "Hey, what's the value of the gifts I should be giving my teachers to get a good grade?" Because that was absolutely necessary where she grew up.
Okay, if you have grown up and operated primarily within the United States and to a degree Western Europe
Mm-hmm.
and a few of the colonial possessions, you have no understanding that the most remarkable thing about our bureaucratic systems is that they actually do their jobs.
Yeah,
Everybody bitches about the DMV.
they do their jobs.
If you show up with the correct paperwork
Yeah.
and with the correct fee as by law, you get your stuff.
Yep.
Three-quarters of the world,
That is
you
not true.
present everything required, and they say, "Okay, well, I might get to this. I might get to filing this in a few weeks," and
Right.
you're going to bribe them. Three-quarters of the world operates entirely on the beautiful Arabic word of bakshish.
Backsheesh.
I have done entire contract jobs that consisted of interfacing with customs officials and providing sufficient bribes for them to sign off on import or export paperwork that was 100% legal.
You have to pay them to do their damn jobs.
To do their job. At least half, closer to three-quarters of the world functions on that principle.
Mm-hmm. Most of Asia,
All of Africa,
most all of Africa, most of Eastern Europe, most of South America,
and
most of Central
increasingly
America,
more and more of Western Europe also works that way.
and more of Western Europe.
And the Caribbean, a lot of South America.
Yep.
there's there's a huge part of the world that you do not understand that bribes are not a bad thing. They're just part of how you do business. You actually, as a business, have a
Budget.
nebulous accounting budget
Yep.
that actually goes to bribes in
If
order to
you
just be able to do business when you're doing everything legally.
if you want to do charitable work in Africa, dig wells or put in irrigation or you know help people have access to medicine, you have to understand that you're going to be paying a certain percentage of your overall budget to the authorities to make sure that they don't to so that they let you do the work and so that they maybe protect you from people who will stop you from doing that work.
And three-quarters of the time, that resource, the second you're done, is going to be taken by whoever has the most guns and money, and then given only to people that they give permission to.
Yes.
There are there are so many rants about aid in Africa that I'm repressing.
Oh,
That honestly, I'm
you've talked to Peter about it.
oh, I've talked with Peter, I've talked with Ian. Kim Dutoit has some excellent
Kim
commentary,
Kim
but
Kim, Kim does not pull any punches, particularly since his wife died.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that is because the systems allow for and incentivize unethical behavior.
And remember, parents, that your children are basically barbarians. Um,
Yes,
much of
the rational and ethical parts of their brains have not filled in yet.
your job, much of my job as a father, is working to civilize my pint-sized barbarians, um, and so teaching them about this stuff in a way that they will absorb the lessons is the name of the game. And sometimes, if I'm lucky, it's natural consequences. It's they do a thing and they suffer for it. But when that's not the case, I'm going to have to impose something. I'm going to have to ideally think ahead and incentivize better behaviors.
And that's the thing is it is a well established fact that while negative reinforcement can be effective, positive reinforcement is more effective. That applies
Mm-hmm.
to dogs, that applies
Mm-hmm.
to children, that applies to adults.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
which is,
to be clear, negative reinforcement is the removal of something. Positive reinforcement is the addition of something, and it doesn't matter whether that's a treat, a what feels like a benefit to them, or something that feels that one of the peculiarities of military wording is that when you go to a non-judicial punishment, like what's in the Navy we call captain's mast, in the rest of in the Air Force and Army, it's uh,
Article 15.
NJP Article 15. Um, you are rewarded with a punishment. Your behavior gets a reward. Whether that reward is positive or negative is up to your behavior.
Yep. So that really is the name of the game. We are helping them to be civilized, to learn how to function in society, how to function in a honest, high trust society.
Ah, excuse me, I've been corrected. It's awarded. You're awarded a consequence, whether negative or positive.
You are
Because
hereby awarded 7 days restriction, 6 hours per day of extra duty,
yes,
and reduction in pay for the duration thereof.
or reduction in rate on a permanent basis. That promotion you just got, well, you don't have it anymore.
Congratulations! Now you get to remove the stripes from all of your uniforms that you just paid $15 a piece to have sewed on.
Yep. That
That's
that
that
that's
stings.
basically insult to injury, and it is very effective.
Well, again, there's a lot of social pressure there.
Yep.
You just made first class, and now you're second class again, where you just were for 4 years. I mean,
How about
if
you
you
put
think
on
everybody
anchors?
else in your section is not going to give you shit over that,
How about
you don't
you put
understand
on
people.
anchors, and now you're wearing khakis, and now you've been reduced to a first or second class for really screwing up something. That's embarrassing.
Uh huh. So the whole point here is to take a look at when you say, well, if you don't do this, then I'm going to do this. To be rational, because we're the
Hmm.
adults, we have the fully developed brains, we have
Yep.
the life experience to be able to overcome our emotions and regulate them, and to be intentional. Oh my God, Dave. That might be the first time we said intentional in this entire show.
That's pretty good. That's I think that might be a record.
The Unhinged Dad's drinking game is not getting anybody shipwrecked tonight.
I mean,
But
hold on. Let me have another couple of fingers.
that's what she said.
Ayo.
Sorry. Sorry guys, can't resist
That's
that setup. There's a part of me that will always be 12 years old
yes.
and endlessly fascinated by breasts.
Also, yes.
It is a reality of the male condition. But when you are designing incentives, you need to take a serious look and say, okay, what am I actually incentivizing? Am I incentivizing do not get caught? Or am I incentivizing being honest about mistakes and using them as opportunities for learning?
Yeah.
Am I applying appropriate consequences to an action? Or am I providing or am I giving consequences that are far too severe
Hmm.
and are going to actually incentivize behavior other than what I want to see?
Or,
Because
frankly, far too lenient and are
also that,
not going to curb any behaviors.
you know, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. I don't want to boss anybody around. For
Right?
somebody who constantly gets thrust into being in charge of shit, I hate bossing people around, including my kids.
Yeah.
And I have to actively work at making sure I'm being consistent, and I am setting boundaries and holding them and setting expectations and holding them to that and following through with consequences when I have to, because inconsistency does not make good behavior habitual.
Yeah. It
And
it
really,
breeds it breeds contempt. Your children will hold you in contempt if you are not consistent. Um, if only if not obviously, then covertly by their behavior.
mhm. And so you design your systems, one, to make the right course of action the easiest one. You have to account for the fact that they're going to make mistakes and that mistakes are learning opportunities, not an opportunity for you to prove to them that they are in fact useless, which is what my parents did for me.
I grew up believing that mistakes were a moral failing, and I don't think that was a lesson from my parents. I think I picked that up through other things. Honestly, that's an easy one to pick up. Our society disincentivizes making mistakes
To an absurd degree,
to
honestly.
to a genuinely absurd degree. Um, One of the things I have consciously worked at is trying to help my children absorb the opposite. That mistakes are learning opportunities. That they are how we learn quickest and best. I don't think I've done as good a job as I want to, but
I haven't. I've made a concerted effort to do so.
mhm,
And you know, I mean, hell, I did that this week with one of my daughters. She was all emotional and irrational, and she's like, "I feel like I'm just being so dramatic." And I said, "You know what? You are. You're blowing this out of proportion, and you are being dramatic.
yep,
And biochemically and neurodevelopmentally, that is where you're at.
yeah,
This is normal behavior. And yes, it annoys me. And I am actively trying to minimize the impact of my annoyance on this interaction because,
yep,
frankly, yes, you are being dramatic, but that's also where your brain and body are at.
hmm,
So, okay, let's understand. Yes, you are being dramatic, but these are cogent and valid issues, and let's talk about addressing those.
yeah, yeah,
And that turned into a productive conversation where we're going to say, okay, this is a bit out of line.
right,
This is this is normal. This is appropriate. And you're right. This is something we need to address, and we're going to address it in this way. And I'm going to report back to you on how your mom and I are going to address this.
right,
And we were able to defuse the situation and go to, okay, so this is a problem. Here's how we're going to address it, and this is how we're going to communicate about how we're going to address it. And this is what I'm going to do. This is my responsibility. This is what I need from you. This is your responsibility.
Right.
And we're actually now working on a solution to the problem as opposed to yelling at each other.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I have talked to my kids about, where if you are wanting to stew in your negative emotions, that's fine, but I don't want to be part of it. I want to
Mm-hmm.
help you resolve this situation. So if you need to take some time and go wallow in, I try not to use this language to them, what wallow in self-pity, then go
Yes.
do that. And come back to me when you are interested in actively working toward a solution.
Yep.
And I am happy to do so.
And that is part of building trust
Mm-hmm.
so that your kids will actually talk to you about when they make mistakes because they
Yeah.
know that you're not going to overreact, that we're going to use this as a opportunity to learn and
Yep.
say, okay, well, what could we have done better? How are
Yeah.
we going? What are we going to do when we encounter this the next time?
We actively work on after action reports with our kids. Hey, this thing happened. What happened? Why did it happen? How did it happen? What can we do better next time?
Yep. Where did we act poorly here? Where did you act poorly? Where did I act poorly as dad?
Yeah.
And that comes back to accountability and being willing to acknowledge to your kids that also you are not perfect
Yeah.
and you make mistakes and you have things to work on too.
Yep.
Because if you try, as my parents did, to portray this image that you never make any mistakes and there's
Oh,
always a justification for your fuck ups, I'm not going to take you seriously. I didn't take my parents seriously.
it's totally natural. It's completely normal. It is a genuine human response to stressors.
And it
Um,
is as wrong as dick cancer.
absolutely, it is absolutely as wrong as dick cancer. That's
I'm
amazing.
I have to credit Paul Markel of the Student of the Gun podcast for initiating me into using that phrase habitually.
That's glorious.
'Cause
Um,
it's one of those things you throw in, it causes a mental reset in the
yeah,
conversation. People go, "The fuck did you just say?"
right. Um,
It's
don't
actually
let
it's
your
genuinely useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't let your children catch you being a hypocrite.
And when you do, because you will, own up to
Right.
it and say, "You know what? You're right, and I
You're
need to
right.
do better on that."
And then work to do better. I don't care if you
Yeah,
don't do
actually
better,
follow through.
but work your ass off to do better.
Yes.
It's so long as you see somebody actively working to do better, even if they're not successful at it, it's better than the alternatives.
It's better than somebody who persists in doing it wrong over
Yes,
and over and over. And
absolutely.
that's been my refrain with my employees, has been my refrain with my kids. What I really care about is that we are addressing problems
Hmm.
and we are working to get past them rather than expending our efforts in justifying why it's okay to continue this maladaptive behavior or continue making
Right.
this mistake. So I
Yeah.
think I think our key points here are try to design programs where the easiest path is the correct path.
Yeah.
I mean, where there are some little guardrails there that direct them towards the desired behavior.
Yes.
When you have to impose consequences, they need to be proportional and reasonable.
Yep.
Because if you are too severe with them, all you do is teach them how to lie to you and hide things, which I can
And
tell you
if
that is what my parents taught me.
and frankly, if they aren't severe enough, they're going to hold you in contempt because kids sniff that out. They are savvy individuals.
Yeah, sometimes you do have to impose severe consequences, and you don't like it, and you have to do it anyways because
Mhm.
otherwise the whole system crumbles.
Yep.
But you have to be intentional, and you have to decide ahead of time where those lines in the sand are.
Yeah.
And you need to question yourself, is this reasonable? Is this
Yep.
proportional to the offense? Because frankly, a kid getting an A minus in one class does not warrant 2 weeks of grounding and 20 hours of extra yard work.
Yep. That's wildly unreasonable.
Again, with a very much raised eyebrow towards my parents, because what I took away from that was I was never going to live up to their standards.
Yeah.
And the corollary to that is then why try?
Yeah.
I'm never going to be good enough for you, so why should I care what you think? And frankly, I'm still in that mindset today, and I'm trying to fix it. Um, can't fix it with my dad. He's been dead for 16 years.
Yeah.
Dealing with my mother and trying to deal with things as they are. Sometimes I just go, you know what? She's trying to.
Yeah.
You need to stop with the reflexive "fuck you."
Because resetting your relationship to ground zero is not as helpful as it might feel at times.
No, I've talked about that some. In my extended family, my mother's really the only one who's ever tried to make any changes, who's ever acknowledged that when it came to my divorce and my final acknowledged exit from Mormonism, that she did not react well and that she did not treat me well.
Right.
Most of my relatives have never gotten there. And so she's at least made the effort. I'm making the effort to try to build a relationship with her and try and curb some of those long term impulses of, look, I know I'm never going to be good enough for you.
Right.
So why try? I never had an open or honest relationship with my parents, because if they found out about the most minor mistakes, I got hammered,
Yeah.
and I was reminded that I was not good enough and that I was a disappointment and a bad person, a bad child,
And
and
that's
that they
not
regretted the broken condom that led to me.
and that is not the relationship you want to have with your children as a parent.
Not when they're kids. Sure as hell not when they're adults.
Well, if you have that relationship with them when they're kids, you're not really going to have a relationship with them when they're adults. And I think it's fairly safe to say that, like me, you want to maintain a decent relationship with your kids now
You
that
know what?
they're starting to become adults.
My oldest kid, I'll be honest, she's my favorite right now.
Dude, she's
Possibly because
awesome.
she's moved out.
Yeah.
There's a certain element of you're no longer living with somebody day to day, and there's a lot of the little irritations go away.
Yeah.
But she's not going to be able to make it on this vacation next week
Mm,
because she has training stuff for work before they
yep.
start doing summer camps. And I was like, God, the kid that I can just go hang out with the easiest is the one who can't go.
Oh
This kind of
man,
sucks.
my dad and I were talking yesterday about, okay, when can we figure out what needs to happen so that my parents can come down for a visit? because they want to hang out with us and they want to see their grandkids. And when you don't have a functioning house, it's really hard to have
Yep.
visitors. And once we have a functioning house, it's not going to be a completely functioning house because we're going to have two unfinished bathrooms,
And there's still going to be some work going on.
and
You
there's
want
going to
to
be work
have
going on.
you want to have a relationship where I'm actually genuinely excited my in-laws are building a house like 2 miles away from us.
Yeah.
If my mom were building a house 2 miles away from us, I would not be excited.
Yay!
Joy, we get to see you more. I get to hear more of your commentary.
Yeah.
And it's not just me. They have three sons and one daughter, and I'm the favorite son.
Yeah.
Well, in actually, never mind. I can't talk about that publicly. But you know what? My wife is also excited that her parents are moving 2 miles away.
You know, through this last 10 months, my in-laws have been down um, like three times for about a week and a half ish, and they have put in serious work on helping us mind the kids while we work or working on the house or both.
Hmm.
And I look forward to hanging out with my father-in-law.
Yeah, me
I
too.
I look forward to hanging out with my parents. I am I My sister has lived within relatively easy walking distance of my parents for the last decade, and it's not really a sore spot, but I'm definitely a little bit jealous
Yeah,
because that's a lot of support that I haven't had. And best part is my parents have genuinely acknowledged that and apologized. And it's not even like there was ever an opportunity for them to move close to us.
especially not the way
But
that the federal government moves you guys every few years.
oh, exactly. And we can both acknowledge that, and as reasonably mature adults say, yeah, that really sucks. And yeah, there has been some hard feelings related to, we can't do stuff because we don't have support. Whereas my sister and brother-in-law could do stuff because
And say, hey,
they
can
could.
you guys watch the kids this Friday? We're going to go to a show.
Right.
You guys can't do
I
that.
I can count the number of dates my wife and I have been on in the last decade on two hands. That's not terribly good,
Yeah,
but
you
equally.
know what we should do next time.
Mm,
Next time you guys happen to be here, provided nothing is on fire or getting flooded or stolen, is have enough kids who are old enough. We can probably leave them behind and actually go out somewhere.
dude, my kids are almost old enough where we can leave our youngest with them for up to 20 or 30, even 30 minutes without real problems. That's pretty good.
That's enough. That's enough time to run through the drive-through somewhere.
Holy cats! Go find a quiet alley and neck in the back seat for a while.
Cars are too fucking uncomfortable for that shit.
Oh my
I'm too old.
gosh, man!
I'm not
Everybody should
16 anymore.
everybody should go spend some quality time in a car with their significant other when they're young and flexible enough. But after a certain point, you really appreciate, a comfortable couch or even, frankly, a mattress.
Uh huh. I mean, hell, I have a Nissan NV. They're big boxy 12 passenger van.
Yeah.
I'm 43. I'm 43 years old and have severely injured most of my major joints. Most of them have been operated on at one point or another. Even in that thing that has tons of room,
Dude,
I have not been desperate enough for physical affection to consider using the van.
you
in the
never
last 6 years.
you didn't get to actually be part of the military, and you're in worse physical shape than most of my veteran buddies, which is really saying something.
Uh, yes, physically, I am profoundly broken and surprisingly functional to
Yeah,
like an insane degree.
yeah,
I'm an outlier to the outliers of the outliers.
it's true.
Somehow it works. I don't know, but yeah. Sorry, doing it in the back seat is just not going to happen.
You know, yeah,
And this is why the tagline is two dads, real talk, no filter.
no filter. You know,
No.
th- I would argue that this we are actually filtering for some of our worst impulses.
Well, yeah, we don't have to admit that to anybody. I mean, compared to most of the people who are putting out content related to parenting, we are extraordinarily unfiltered and very very unhinged. Even if we are actually modulating ourselves for the general population,
Yeah, that's fair.
because fuck the polish, it's bullshit. It really is.
Man, you know, there are days where you have ice cream for dinner. There just are.
There are days when you have beer for dinner.
I I I
Not
like
at our age.
I like whiskey, but I yeah.
So I think it is high time to wrap this up.
Yep.
So be aware of this concept of perverse incentives.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what behavior am I actually incentivizing? Am I
Get
teaching my kids to lie, or am I teaching them to do good?
get really mercenary about it. Be honest about your motivations and honest about which behaviors you actually care about. I genuinely don't care what my children write on, provided they write words that come out of their own heads rather than just copy crap or
Yeah.
use chat gpt to fake writing.
I'll be honest. I use Grok to make my writing more palatable to the general population. Because I have learned in the last year or so that the way that I write naturally, um, a lot of people actually find kind of condescending. And I like to get really technical and really deep in the weeds on stuff that most people don't give a shit about.
Yeah.
So I do not use a large language model to write for me. I do use it to critique my writing and provide
Yes.
suggestions on how to make this more accessible,
It's a
how to make
useful
this
tool.
more useful for people who are not at my level of detail on the subject.
Right. Just because I'm unhinged and mildly insane doesn't mean that that translates into an entertaining time for other people. But
And yet
there are
we've had up
tools.
to half a dozen people sitting here listening to us today.
There are tools
Thanks,
out there
weirdos.
that right. There are tools out there that help us be more interesting for more people, and that's a useful thing. So I'm working to help my children enjoy the work that they're going to have to do.
Yep, that's building a system
Yep.
that makes the right path the easiest path,
Yes.
and it requires intention so that one, don't reward shit behavior,
Right.
and two, stop breeding cobras.
Stop breeding cobras.
That's right. You want your people to be safe from snake bites, not breeding cobras so that you pay for their heads.
Yep.
So If you've been listening, you've stuck around this week, pick one rule or one reward in your house and ask yourself, what behavior am I actually incentivizing?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about it with your partner if you're fortunate enough to have one. If you don't have a partner, then talk about it with yourself
Yep.
and make the changes. Sometimes that means telling your kids, you know what, we've not been going about this in the best way. So we're going to readjust here because this is what I actually want you to learn.
Yes.
Be honest about your mistakes. Be as consistent as you can be. And as always, go follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X. I'm posting more frequently on X instead of ignoring it. You won't find us on TikTok because fuck TikTok. I'm not Gen Alpha. Don't expect me to pander to them. We're not interesting to them anyways.
Yeah, our dialogue isn't nearly that snappy.
No, we, we drift way too much. But yeah, go like, follow, subscribe to us on Substack. I will have on Saturday coming up a piece that relates to next week's episode on traveling with children. That will include a free downloadable road trip checklist for those of you who don't have three auto tech degrees.
Our family really likes long road trips, which is to say, I grew up doing those. So did my wife. We've introduced our children to them. We've managed to survive several.
Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about strategies. So we're going to be talking about airport strategies because I've done Trans-Pacific by myself a lot. I've done
Yep.
Trans-Pacific with children, once with a 4-month-old and a 20-month-old,
Oh man,
and
4 months
once
old or
5 and 6-year-olds.
4 months old? That's fantastic. They're a sack of potatoes with opinions. That's it.
And for next week, we will have our very good friend Dr. Nick because I'm holding him hostage in the vacation house we're renting. And we're going to
Outstanding.
talk. We're going to talk about how he handled being stuck in India for an extra 2 weeks with a 2-year-old.
A very precocious 2-year-old.
Oh my God, she is my niece because I am, yeah, we're not related by blood. He is my brother, just like Dave is.
Smart
My
kid
niece,
problems are exciting, man.
my niece is the most adorable thing ever, and a big part of that is because I don't have to deal with her shit on a daily basis.
Yep.
I don't have this little precocious extrovert who wants to interact with me constantly every day. So I see her for 5 or 6 days. Then 6 months later, I see her again for 4 or 5 days. She's lovely. Um, I'm really curious to hear the Scotch influence take on an extra 2 weeks after 3 weeks in India with her.
That's gonna be fun.
It will be fun. And guys, we're actually acting professional. We're like planning content out a couple of weeks in advance. I'm drafting the thumbnails and outlines for shows so that we actually make sure we hit the points we intended to. Because, whiskey gets involved and then we go and do side quests and forget the main point.
Yep.
But anybody who stuck around, thank you so much. Um, I can tell you doing the show has actually been therapeutic for me. It's helping me better like verbalize and understand that I'm dealing with people with developing brains and they're not trying to be assholes. It has actually been genuinely positive in helping me better, mentalize and reframe where my kids are coming from and how I should be handling it.
Hmm.
And of course, I get to spend a couple of hours every week bullshitting with one of my best friends who otherwise I see like every 2 or 3 years.
I mean, we get, uh-huh.
It's ADHD, out of sight, out of mind.
Man, so
But
true.
Yep. So, guys, stop breeding cobras. Don't reward shit behavior. And every day, you just do a little bit better, and that puts you ahead of 90% of the world population, because most of them, frankly, are just happy to stagnate. We're not. We do better. We be better a little bit every day. And when we backslide, shit happens. We learn from the mistakes.
Yep. Own it. Get better.
Be better. Okay. Shit. Where is my video tab? Let me play the disclaimer and send everybody off to bed.
Because it's late. We tired.
My wife is waiting for me.
Yeah.
All right, that is it for tonight's episode. Thank you for joining us. Quick reminder, all opinions expressed here are solely those of the individual speakers, hosts, and guests alike, and do not represent the views of any affiliated person, organization, company, sponsor, or other entity. This show is provided for entertainment purposes only. Nothing discussed is professional advice of any kind. Always consult a qualified professional and use your own best judgment before acting on anything we've talked about. Again, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode.